people always ask me like, Tony, how much money should I get for this Airbnb, or how much money should I think that I should be making, or what's the right kind of property? And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what kind of property you buy, as long as you can hit the return mark that you want. I think that's what's most important. The general rule of thumb that I share with people for purchased short-term rentals is that the gross revenue should be no less than 20% of the purchase price.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Jorge Contreras Show podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs and those who want to get to 10K a month with Airbnb. And I got a very special guest. I came across his social media profiles just a few months ago. Super impressed with everything that him and his wife are doing, all the content, all the Airbnbs. So Tony J. Robinson, welcome to the show, brother. How are you?
Jorge, thanks for having me, man. I'm appreciative of you sharing me with your listeners. And dude, I love to always meet another local investor. We're both based in SoCal, so there's not too many of us Airbnb guys down here, man. But glad to connect, brother.
I love it, man. Quick question. Just, I feel like it's always really good for people to relate. Sometimes they see us already being successful with Airbnb and they're like,
Yeah.
but I'm in this 9 to 5. Or so what's your story like? What did you do before Airbnb, before becoming a real estate entrepreneur? If you could kind of
Yeah.
expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, of course, man. So, my story, like many others, went to, got good grades, went to college, graduated, climbed the corporate ladder. And, I was working at this company. I was making like a healthy six-figure salary working there. And, but I always knew that I wanted, kind of more from life than being an employer for the rest of my life. And I bought my very first real estate investment back in October of 2019. So just over where are we at right now? So like a little like 2.5 years ago, we got our first deal, and that was actually a single family long-term residence out of state. So I wanted to start somewhere, didn't really know where I wanted to start. So I said, cool, let me buy a single family house. So I ended up doing that. Like, we bought, I think, 4 houses out of state in this market. And then we said, okay, cool. We want to scale faster. We want to make a little bit more cash flow because, I was making like $150 a month on that single family house, and it's like, I'm going to need a lot of those to be able to replace my W-2 income. So I said, okay, I need some kind of other asset, some other type of real estate investment that's going to allow me to kind of leave my job faster. So we dabbled in different things. I tried to do apartment syndication. That was very difficult, kind of challenging to break into. And then, I got introduced to the world of short-term rentals. We bought our first one during COVID. And then, we kind of fell in love with that first property. And as of today, we have 15 active single family vacation rentals split between 2 different markets. We've got, I don't know, by the end of this year, we'll be at 30 with everything that we have under contract right now. And then we've got a 23 unit hotel that we have under contract that we'll be closing on next month as well, man. So that first one was like the gateway drug, and we kind of just ran with it ever since.
Wow. And that first single family that you got in 2019, where was it located?
So that was in the city of Shreveport, Louisiana. So it's like the third biggest city in Louisiana after New Orleans and Baton Rouge. I had some family that lived there, and I was able to get found some good deals, got some really good financing. So we are able to do a couple birds out there. But like I said, man, the cash flow, although steady, wasn't enough to kind of get me excited about continuing to do that.
And if I understand correctly, you guys are implementing all on the purchasing side, correct?
Yeah, everything that we have in our portfolio right now is like an owned property. And it's obviously a little bit more challenging to do it that way. The capital outlay is a little bit bigger, but for a few reasons, that's just been our approach.
Absolutely. And how have you guys been able to, for all of our listeners who want to go into purchasing route, but they're like, man, how am I going to scale? Like, if I want to get five, but they don't have
Right.
$500,000, how are you guys able to scale, or what strategies are you guys using?
So for us, Jorge, it's been a mix of things. So when we first started, it was just capital we had saved up, right? Like I was grinding away at my W-2 job. Like I said, I had a pretty healthy salary doing that, and we took pretty much all the bonuses and the raises and all that stuff, and we were just throwing it at real estate. So we bought our first 4 short-term rentals, just like with money we had saved up from the day job. And then after we bought 4, and we're kind of sharing our journey and we're talking about what we're doing, people start to take notice. And, it's crazy, man. Like for anyone that's listening right now, no matter where you're at in your journey, I very much encourage you to share what you're doing on your social media, share it on your Facebook, on your LinkedIn, on your Instagram, on your TikTok, like whatever platform you have, start sharing it, because what's going to happen is that once you close in that first deal, someone that you haven't talked to since like elementary school, they're going to reach out to you. They're going to say, hey, I've been thinking about investing in real estate too. I see that you're doing this. And if that happens enough times, you'll end up finding a partner that maybe you actually want to do a deal with. So that's what happened to us, right? We get, 4 properties in the span of like, I don't know, like 6 months. And after that 4th property, we had a lot of people that ended up wanting to work with us. So we were able to leverage a lot of partnerships to help with that scale. And then, once the snowball and the machine start rolling, we had enough capital coming in and start funding some of our other deals as well.
Awesome, man. Partnerships. That's super powerful. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
doing a lot of partnerships myself on the purchasing side, on the subleasing side. And yeah, we've been, I see actually that you guys you're in the Joshua Tree market, right?
Yeah.
We actually just got our first property there. And
Okay. Congratulations, man.
yeah, thanks. I've been buying properties since 2012, but I've always bought on the market, all these bidding wars, and I was like, you know what, man, I got to start buying off market. So literally
Mhm.
about 3 weeks ago, we hired a cold caller, bought a list in the Joshua Tree, Yucca Valley area, and yesterday we opened our first. Actually, we opened our escrow today. It's like a
Yeah.
1.1 million dollar off market, 2,800 square foot on a 2.8 acres. It's got a pool, jacuzzi,
It's
and
amazing, man.
spoke to the city today just to kind of confirm, gave them the address. They said, yeah, 30 to 60 days to get the permit. So now our manager's on that. But super excited, man. It's really awesome because I was looking in the Joshua Tree market 3, 4 years. Well, I started 5 years ago, and it's crazy that
Dirt cheap back then, man.
property values have doubled in 3 years,
Yeah.
almost everywhere in Joshua Tree. It's just incredible.
Hmm.
But I think I saw one of your videos. You got your first one, I believe, in like Pigeon Fort. I'm not even sure where that is, but I remember.
Yeah, dude, it was the same thing for us. So yeah, it was in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which is right outside another big national park, which is the Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee. And dude, like same as you, man. Being in California, a lot of us don't know what's going on in Eastern Tennessee, but the Smoky Mountains is the #1 most visited national park in the United States by far. If you add up, so Pigeon Forge, Smoky Mountains is #1. If you add up number 2, 3, and 4, it still doesn't get to the Smoky Mountains. I think they're a little over 14 million visitors a year. The next one is the Grand Canyon, I think at like 6 million, and then it kind of tapers off from there. But we had a friend that bought in that market. And he said, hey, I know you guys are trying to do this apartment syndication thing, but I really think you should take a look into short-term rentals. There's a lot of undervalued properties in that market. The returns are amazing. And dude, like we put our property, or we put our offer in on that property sight unseen. And we didn't even fly out to actually see it until after we closed on it. But it ended up being like our best deal that we ever did, man. Like the numbers on that thing were crazy. So that's like I said, that's what got us hooked in the first place.
Yeah, I saw that video, man. I was that where you guys talked about all the numbers on that property, and I was just like, wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Another question for you, Tony, is with the size of the amount of properties you guys have and where you're scaling, for all of our listeners, like what does your team look like in order to be able to run an operation from 15 to 30?
Yeah, so it's growing right now, man. So for the longest time, it was me, my wife, and her cousin, who's our third partner. So the three of us make up our core investment teams. Our company is called Alpha Geek Capital. So alpha, like alpha male, geek like nerds, and then capital. So for the longest time, it was just the three of us. And then this year, we started adding on more team members. So we have a bookkeeper. She's based overseas, but we just hired an operations manager. And now we have a team of VAs that handle most of the like guest communication. So right now with all of us, there's like 7 of us now all together.
Awesome. And then I think this would be super valuable for our listeners. When you think of launching a successful Airbnb, what are like the top 2 or 3 tips that you would share with someone who's like just getting started and they want to
Yeah.
take with like purchasing short-term rentals?
Before you even think about the property, I'm going to focus on the location. Everyone's going to have kind of like their own kind of niche that they go into. I know, I have a lot of friends who do arbitrage as well, and they kind of focus on, like more metro or suburban type markets. But whatever, we do more vacation destination markets, right? But whatever market you choose, the very first thing you have to make sure is, from a policy and a permitting perspective, that you'll be able to legally operate. Um, I know some folks in the Airbnb space, short-term rental space, that don't really care about the permits. They're going to buy, they're going to run in, they're going to kind of roll the dice. But a lot of these cities, they're really cracking down on these illegal short-term rental operators. And I know I wouldn't want to put $500,000 or $600,000 or $1 million into a property that maybe I can or maybe I can't operate as a short-term rental. So for me, before you do anything, I would focus on the permitting piece. Once you know that you've got a market where you can legally operate, it's all about finding the property that's going to help you get to the return that you want, right? People always ask me, like, Tony, how much money should I get for this Airbnb, or, how much money should I think that I should be making, or what's the right kind of property? And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what kind of property you buy. As long as you can hit the return mark that you want, I think that's what's most important. The general rule of thumb that I share with people for purchased short-term rentals is that the gross revenue should be no less than 20% of the purchase price. So if you buy a property that's $500,000, it should do about $100,000 in gross revenue every year. Our properties do that at a minimum. A lot of ours are doing, 30, 35, 40% of gross revenue. But that's where I would start, man. I would say, let me make sure this market can support short-term rentals. And then as you're looking in that market, make sure that you're not overpaying for that property, because I'm seeing a lot of that happening today.
I love it. And in this journey now, the way you've gotten to 15, short-term rentals, and by the end of the year, 30, what are some of the top challenges or obstacles that you've had to like overcome, whether it's a city, whether it's with a team, or just on the operations, just anything that we can share with the audience?
Yeah, and I think our biggest mistake so far, Jorge, has been not, I guess two things, right? The first is not scaling faster. Like, we knew all this growth was coming, but we waited a little bit too long to bring some of those people on board. So we found ourselves feeling exceptionally overwhelmed. So in addition to the active listings that we have 6 rehabs we're working on. We've got another, I don't know, like 6 properties under contract that we're trying to buy right now. We're traveling all over the place, looking at different markets. So there's just like a lot going on in the business. And for me, the goal was never just to be this guy that owns short-term rentals. It was to build a business, right? And to build an effective business, you need people. So I think one of the biggest challenges for us was waiting a little bit too long to bring some of those people on board. And then the second mistake we made was not clearly defining enough of our processes earlier on. We were so focused working in the business that we weren't spending enough time working on the business to make sure that we have repeatable processes. So now that we've hired on these people recently, we're realizing, okay, there's a lot of stuff that's like tribal knowledge, where I know how to do it, my wife knows how to do it, our partner knows how to do it, but there's no clear documented process on how someone else can step in and do it. So these aren't even like, ultimately specific to short-term rentals. These are just like business practices that we didn't get right. But in specific to short-term rentals, dude, there's so many mistakes that we made, like not really leveraging automation and tools to begin, right? When our first short-term rental, anytime we had a booking, we were like taking a screenshot of the booking in the calendar and like texting it back and forth with our cleaner, and that like gets old so fast. So I think for us, it was, understanding the tools and the software and the automation we had available, really ramping that up, has allowed us to scale without losing our hair. The right people, right? Getting the right cleaner, the right handyman on your team. We fired, I don't know, 4 cleaners as we've kind of scaled our business, because if you hire the wrong cleaner, to me, that's like the easiest and fastest way to derail your short-term rental business. So, not spending the right time, or not spending enough time up front to find the right people. So I could go on and on about the mistakes we make, because there's a lot.
Yeah, I remember making that mistake too early on in the first year. I was communicating we launched like 4 Airbnbs from properties that we already own. So actually,
Yeah.
right? I started with properties that I already own in March of 2017. And then I went to subleasing, and then the subleasing kind of helped me go back into the purchasing. But long story short, I was also communicating with the cleaners on the calendar. And one day we had a cutoff of like 5 p.m. For same day booking. Somebody booked it like at 4:55. My VA sent them all the check-in info. They checked out at 10. The new guest arrived at like 3 o'clock, and they're like, "Hey, we arrived, but the property's dirty."
It's dirty.
I was like, "Oh my God, like, how did this happen?" And I was like, "All right, I need to give them access to the calendar."
Right. Right.
myself from the middle and stop playing the middleman.
Totally.
And it was a total game changer.
Yeah.
On the with your acquisition, are you guys buying mostly on market, off market? Is it a combination?
A little bit of everything, man. For all the stuff that we have under contract right now, a couple came from the MLS, a couple came from wholesalers that we know. We have relationships with developers in some of our markets where they're building new properties, and instead of them listing it, they're just hand them straight to us so we can purchase them. So that's a benefit of, I think, scaling as quickly as we did, is that we were kind of able to establish a name for ourselves in some of these markets that we buy in. And when you buy 4 or 5 houses in a span of 4 months from the same person, they want to continue to work with you. So we get a mix of everything right now from an acquisition standpoint.
And Tony, I'm sure you've come across a lot of people that reach out to you. They want to get into this business, but they're not sure if Airbnb or short-term rentals are saturated. They're like overthinking, going into analysis paralysis. Like, what do you say to those people that they literally have the money, they have the credit, they have the purchasing power, but they're just kind of like waiting on the sidelines, or they're just waiting to like time the market? Like, what do you usually say to that type of person?
Yeah. So two big things you mentioned, right? First was like the short-term rental saturation. Second was trying to time the market. I'll talk about the market timing piece first. Don't do it. like there's, I won't even sugarcoat it. Like I think that is one of the worst decisions you can make as an investor, is to try and time the market, because no one has a crystal ball. When we first started, we started literally in the middle of COVID. And, I'm telling friends and family, like, hey, we're buying this vacation rental in the state we've never been to, the city we've never heard of, in the middle of a global pandemic. And people thought we were crazy, right? But it turned out to be the best decision that we ever made. So even if you buy a house today and say we end up slipping into this recession that people are afraid of, and maybe there is a slight downturn in the economy, if you look 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, buying that house today was probably still a good decision. Right. Like in the history of the United States, real estate has generally done pretty well when you look at like a 5, 10, 15-year period. So for me, I know that I'm not buying to make, obviously we want to make cash flow today, but I know that ultimately I'm buying, and this is a long-term play for me. So trying to time the market, like, dude, I know people like 5 years ago who said the market was going to crash, so I'm going to wait. Those same people are still sitting on the sideline, while I've literally become a millionaire by buying real estate and letting the market do its thing. Right. So that's my thoughts on like time in the market. I think it's one of the worst decisions you can make as a real estate investor. In terms of saturation in the short-term rental market, I personally think that we're still very much in like the early stages of the short-term rental asset class. If you look at pretty much every other type of real estate investing that there's already big institutional investors playing in that space. So if you look at apartment complexes, if you look at self-storage, if you look at industrial, if you look at retail, even if you look at like house flipping, right? Like there are these big, multi-billion-dollar corporations that are going in, gobbling up all these different types of homes and playing in that asset class. And whenever that happens, you start to see the returns in that asset class decrease, right? Because these big multi-billion-dollar corporations, they need like a 7% return. They don't need like a 20, 30, 40% return that us small guys need. But we're not quite seeing that same level of institutional investing happening in the short-term rental space. So I think anyone that can position themselves today to build a big portfolio of short-term rentals, as this institutional money starts to come in, you'll be in a good position to kind of cash out. And the last thing I'll say on like the saturation piece, Jorge, is that last year, I think it was last year, Airbnb does like these big announcements. And last year, Brian Chesky, who's the CEO of Airbnb, he said they believe that they need 1 million more hosts globally to support the demand that they're seeing on their platform. And he was right. Airbnb just released their quarterly earnings, like 3 weeks ago, and they crushed all Wall Street expectations. They had tremendous year-over-year growth. And, all signs point that will continue to happen, because even though, there was COVID and there was this pandemic and people slowed down, even all the challenges in the economy, there's been this really permanent shift in how people travel. right? Like I have so many friends who are permanently working remote, like they're never going back to the office. And that has happened across the entire nation. So as this shift happens in like the workplace, you see more and more people who say, well, shoot, if I can work from anywhere, why am I going to stay in this city? Let me go to this other place. Let me spend a couple of days here. Let me spend a couple of days there. So I think us as the Airbnb owners and short-term rental owners will be able to really capitalize on that trend.
Powerful, super valuable there. Another question for you is, what do you see Alpha Geek Capital like in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, what do you guys envision for your company?
So our goal is over the next 10 years, we want to get our portfolio to be worth $1 billion. Like that's the big goal for us. That'll be a mix of single family houses, of commercial real estate. Right? Like I said, we're working on buying a hotel right now. So we want our portfolio to be worth at least $1 billion over the next 10 years. And the reason that we have that goal, Jorge, is what I said earlier about these institutional investors. If I can be the guy that owns $1 billion worth of short-term rentals, then when these big institutions come in, they're looking for these portfolios to gobble up, I can raise my hand and say, hey, I got this well-oiled machine. You guys can have it. Me and my team get cashed out and we can, ride off into the sunset and do whatever we want to do for the rest of our lives.
Awesome. And so that's the game plan, is to be able to maybe sell a portion or the entire portfolio,
Yeah.
and then go retire in Tulum
Yeah.
or Asia or Malaysia, somewhere.
Wherever we want, all those places, right? We'll spend a little bit of time everywhere.
And any last words that you want to share for just people that want to get started in the business? Just any last words that you would like to share, Tony?
I mean, if you're on the fence, right, there's three things that I say every potential investor needs to be successful as an Airbnb investor or a short-term rental investor. You need the time, you need the ability, and you need the desire, right? Inherently, short-term rentals take more time than long-term rentals, right? You have multiple guests checking in, checking out. Like our properties turn on average like every 2.5 days, right? So every 2.5 days, we have someone else coming in and someone else coming out. That requires more time. So you need the time to be able to manage your guests, to manage your cleaners, to manage your handyman, to manage your pricing, to manage your listing, to manage your, like all the stuff that comes into it. After your time, you need the ability, right? You need the ability to effectively manage people. You need the ability to provide good customer service to your guests. You need the ability to be able to price your listing appropriately, when to raise your prices, when to lower your prices, and so on. So you need the time, you need the ability, but most important, you need the desire, right? You have to actually want to do all that work, because even if you have a bunch of time on your hands, and even if you know how to provide good customer service, if you don't want to do it, then it's going to suck trying to build the short-term rental portfolio. So I think if you have the time, if you have the ability, and you have the desire, and you have, the capital, I don't know what you'd be waiting for, right? The scariest deal is usually the first one. But once you get past that first one and you can prove to yourself that you can do it, it gets exponentially easier. And my theory, Jorge, is that, and I try and share this with as many people as I can, is that the purpose of your first deal is not to make you a ton of money. The purpose of your first deal is to educate yourself, is to give you the proof of concept, and to give you the confidence you need to go on to your second deal and your fifth deal and your 10th deal. I don't know a single person that made so much money on their first deal that they were able to retire, right? Everyone needs a second deal.
Right.
So if you can reframe that first deal of like, this needs to be perfect, or I need to make a ton of money, to being, I just need to learn how to do this, I think it takes away a lot of that fear of getting started.
It's true. I think that's something that super valuable. I remember like 4 years ago, my partner and I bought a property from a wholesaler, and it was like a $200,000 rehab to do a BRRRR. And we wanted to learn this business so bad that I remember calling my partner and I said, Jaime, I said, I don't care if we make any money. I care about who we become in the process.
Mm.
And who we become in the process has made us millions and millions of dollars. We made zero money on that first deal, but it did get us started. And then the other thing, right, in real estate, we have the law of the first deal. Is 100% of the people that never do their first deal never go on to do their second and their third, and their fourth, and their fifth. But I think that's super valuable. Maybe the highlight of this podcast is so many people, they have such high expectations about the first one that then it seems unrealistic, that then they just wait on the sidelines, when instead it's like, just do it. Who cares if you break even or you just make a couple $100? Focus on who you become in the process, because that's going to be like your best return on investment over time.
Totally, man. Dude, I lost $30,000 on my second real estate deal, but I'm still here, right? Now I was still able to kind of roll with the punches and make the right choices to build a big portfolio.
I love it. Tony, how can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, man, I'm everywhere. So on Instagram, it's at Tony J Robinson. My wife and I have a YouTube channel where we document our short-term rental journey. So you guys can check me out at the Real Estate Robinsons. If you like podcasts, I'm the co-host of the Bigger Pockets Real Estate Rookie podcast for like a top 30 podcast on Apple and Spotify. And then last, if you guys want to learn more about maybe investing with us, you can head over to alphageekcapital.com and learn about all the different investment offerings that we have.
Awesome. Appreciate you being on here, brother. And guys, make sure you guys follow Tony. You guys can partner up. He's got a wealth of knowledge. As you guys see, he's building $1 billion short-term rental portfolio. So make sure you guys connect with him, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.